Hello and welcome, everyone. I am SAG-AFTRA Executive Vice President Ben Whitehair. Thank you all so much for joining us for another SAG-AFTRA program on YouTube. To stay current with all of our video events, we invite you to subscribe to this channel, which you can even do right now. Today, as always, we are joined by American Sign Language interpreters Lindsay Gibbons and Mara Bassani Santamaria. As a reminder, today's program is being recorded and you can watch the replay right here on SAG-AFTRA's YouTube channel, along with all of our other great content. I would now like to introduce former SAG-AFTRA President Gabrielle Carteris, who currently chairs the National Conservatory Committee. Gabrielle and the committee were instrumental in coordinating today's event, and I'm so excited to have you here. Gabrielle.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you so much for being so supportive of this programming. It's really, I think it's going to be so meaningful to our members. So Ben's right. I am the chair of the conservatory. And one of the things that came up in the committee was the fact that there's so much work that's available to members out in the universe that they're just not aware of. You know, we come into the union maybe because we have a show or a project that comes up, and that becomes the pathway to what we build in our careers. But there are so many things within the industry work that is available to us that we might not know of. And one of those great opportunities is actually in dubbing. And so we brought together, I want to say, first of all, again, thank you, Ben. I'm very excited that the union is supporting this kind of work so our members can see what the potential is for them out there. But I also want to thank our guests because they are all stellar at the work that they do. They're very involved with the development and the work of dubbing in this country. It's a growing field. And so I'm really thank them for being here, for offering their knowledge and support. So without further ado, I pass it to Ben, but I'm very happy to be with you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gabrielle. Today, the PTEOE, President's Task Force on Education, Outreach, and Engagement, does indeed bring you a special discussion that could not be more timely: the rise of live action dubbing, expanded opportunities for actors. So, as Gabrielle mentioned, we have assembled an all-star panel of experts to talk about this booming area of work. And when I say booming, I am not exaggerating. By some estimates, professional artists are dubbing more than 100,000 hours of content into English and Spanish every year. Streamers primarily are bringing thousands of hours of foreign language film and television into millions of American homes. This globalization of content has created an enormous pipeline of long-term and stable opportunities for dubbing industry veterans and new artists alike. So, how do you get from point A, here watching this program on YouTube, to point B, in the studio building your career? That is where our guests, some of the most prolific professionals working in live action dubbing today, come in. So without further delay, let me introduce everyone. Assaf Cohen has appeared on numerous TV shows, films, and has lent his voice for audiobooks, video games, live action dubbing, scripted podcasts, and more. His dubbing credits include leading roles on Money Heist, aka La Casa de Papel, Fauda, Dark, Teare, The Takedown, and more. On camera, you may have seen him on TV shows and films such as Entourage, 911, Weeds, This Is Us, American Sniper, Grey's Anatomy, Fast and Furious, and so much more. He has also narrated dozens of audiobooks and can be heard on video games such as Call of Duty Black Ops 4 and several more coming out in the very near future. Assaf served for 7 years on the SAG and SAG-AFTRA boards of directors. He holds an MFA in acting from Rutgers University. Assaf, so excited to have you here. Matthew Kollar primarily works in film and directing for film. His work primarily has been featured on major horror outlets, showcased in film festivals around the world. And besides on-camera work, he's directed the English voice casts for Netflix international hits Money Heist and Lupin, and his original composing can be heard in cult classic feature films such as Bobcat Goldthwait's God Bless America. Thank you for being here, Matt, a man of many talents. Next up, Courtney Sauls is best known for her portrayal of Brooke Morgan in the Netflix series Dear White People. As a Houston native, she attended the famous High School for the Performing Arts before receiving a BFA at NYU's Tisch School of the Arts. In addition to her role on DWP, she also starred in Justin Simeon's film Bad Hair on Hulu, IFC's Brockmire, and the first season of Fox's 911. Her voice can be heard in the English dub of Guerra de Vecinos, playing the role of Teare for both seasons. Courtney, it is so great to have you here. All right, Dorit Simone is a casting specialist working in casting actors for English dubs of foreign films and series. Dorit has worked on a number of Netflix projects, including Money Heist, Fauda, The Life Ahead, and the recent popular series Lupin. She has had the privilege of working with directors David Zellner, Eilert Zurer, Joe Lynch, and Eduardo Ponti, among many others. In addition to casting, Dorit is also a talent manager and a producing partner with Good Tile Entertainment. Welcome, Dorit. Okay, last but certainly not least, Nell Teare is an actor, writer, and director who recently released her debut feature film, Bolivar. Her credits include Always Remember Me, for which she was the winner of the Kodak Honorable Mention at the 2018 Holly Shorts Film Festival, Happy Hour, Lovers, Katie Plus Ben, and numerous other films, shorts, and web series. She has directed the American voice casts for Amazon, Netflix, and Disney Plus productions, including The Bad Guy, The Virgin series, Crazy Love, Sexify, Chef's Table, Fauda, Luna Park, Into the Wind, Ignorant Angels, and many others. Nell, thank you so much for joining us. What a remarkable cast of characters we have here today, spanning so many different areas of dubbing. I have been fortunate to work a lot in this space, and I'm super excited to dive in so that our SAG-AFTRA members can get a much clearer picture of what this world looks like. So to start off, Assaf, I'm curious, when did you start working in live action dubbing, and how did you get your start?
Good question. It kind of fell into my lap randomly from the most unexpected places. So my older son was in preschool at the time with my good friend who's a talented actress named Yafi Josephson. And she said, hey, my friend Dorit is casting the live action dubbing of the show Fauda. Do you know it? And I'm like, well, yeah, it's a show, you know, that's very popular in Israel and the Middle East, you know. And she said, you know, they're looking for people who, you know, English is their, you know, native language, but they're also authentically tied to Middle Eastern languages, to Hebrew and Arabic. And I said, yeah, that sounds like something that might be up my alley. And so I said, sure, I'll go in. But beforehand, I met Dorit, and it was actually at Yafit's, her son's bris. And I met her, and she's charming and wonderful. And we spoke about it. And I said, this sounds like an exciting opportunity. And it was a union contract, which is something I feel strongly about. And I said, okay, I'll audition for it. And it went well. And, you know, and I was fortunate enough to be included in that dub cast for Fauda. And that show is still going strong. I think they're right now in their 4th, 5th, 18th season. I don't know. Very big show in the Middle East and the world. Big title for Netflix, I think. And since then, Dorit has been good enough to bring me in to audition for more stuff. And through that, I've been fortunate enough to work with some other wonderful, wonderful people on this panel, including Matt and Nell and Courtney. I don't know if we've gotten a chance to be together in the same cast yet, but I look forward to that opportunity. But that was my start. It came from a bris.
I love it. Courtney, I have the same question. How did you get started working in live action dubbing?
I'm actually quite newer to this work. So I'm happy to be here to be able to give like that perspective of someone who just is newly into it. But I feel really, really grateful, and I'm really, really excited about it. I actually went to high school with Miss Nell Teare. So we have been friends since we were 13. We also went to NYU together and we're roommates our freshman year because of course you stick together. So we are longtime friends. And Nell called one day and said, hey, I think I have something for you. I think this would be something you'd really, really excel at. And I'm like, okay. And I think this was just a few years ago, right? I did. I'm very type A. So the work, the work of trying to match things and put the pieces of the puzzle together really just excites me. But the one thing I will say that I think is one of the coolest things about this work, especially for me that I've experienced, is I was able to continue doing it while pregnant. And I had just finished a show, on-screen show, and kind of feeling like, okay, I guess I'm taking this big break from acting, which is what I love to do, not really knowing like what to do to fill that time. And I was able to do dubbing. I was able to do this work. And I felt like it was like such a blessing to be able to continue to work while pregnant and be creative. So yeah, that's how I got started. And I look forward to working with everybody on this panel and just continuing to explore. Yeah.
I love that. I'll add my own 2 cents just because I think the question, like, how do I get started, often comes up. For me, it came through relationships with Assaf and others on this panel, which has also led to a lot of the film and television I've worked. I think it's a very similar to other things in the acting industry where, the relationships and of course doing good work, right? I mean, actors always know that talent comes first. And if you're good, people want to work with you again, right? You can look at anybody's resume online and see, oh, they keep working with the same people. They probably like working together. So to the actors out there, both relationships, and I know there are both voiceover and even some other agents and managers that are, submitting talent with voiceover reels and others for these dubbing projects. We'll get more into that, but that was how I got my start. Matt, I'm curious, there are likely many folks watching who aren't familiar with how dubbing works. Can you walk us through like the basic mechanics of the process?
Yeah. How clinical do you want me to be here? Like really?
Start with maybe like the big picture overview of just like, okay, what are we talking about? Foreign language,
Cool.
dubbing into another language, and then we can get a little bit nitty gritty. I think, our SAG-AFTRA members are generally pretty well versed in these things, so you can get a little clinical.
Yeah. Cool. Well, so when we think about dubbing, you have to understand that it's something that's been around and been happening around the world for so long. Think about those Italian spaghetti westerns and these great French films, and there's a whole industry that exists overseas where they've been taking content from the States and dubbing it into Italian and French. But when we talk about English dubbing, which is something that's relatively new, at least stateside, that gets to be an interesting conversation because we kind of got to make it up, which was fun, and to figure out what that was. But a really basic idea here is that there's these great international shows being made in Spain, in Sweden, Germany, and Poland, all around the world. And big streamers like Netflix, Amazon, Disney, etc., they have to take that now and localize it for the States. And so basically what we do is we get to take those great series like Money Heist or La Casa de Papel and create performances in English by translating it from the Spanish to the English. And basically what happens is there's 3 processes. There's casting, there's recording, and there's mixing. So it runs just like a normal TV show, except you're not shooting in front of a camera. So the casting process is exactly the same though. Like we find actors who fit the roles. We record scene by scene like you would do on camera, but everything's in pieces. And then eventually we mix it and put it all together. So it's kind of like this magical international puzzle that we have the pleasure of creating.
There we go. I dig that. It is quite the puzzle, and bringing together so many different elements of the technical side, right? The actual engineers to casting, which Dorit, I'm coming to you. How does an actor, in your experience, break into live action dubbing? Where do they start?
Is that for me?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, sorry, Dorit. Go for it.
Well, a few areas. I can probably speak to where I find actors. So I work with voiceover agents a lot. I do think relationships are important. If you have friends who are repped by voiceover agents, I would definitely ask them. So I think your fellow actors can be a huge resource. I've had actors, a lot of actors, including Ben and Assaf, refer actors to me as well, and who we've cast over and over again. I do often release a breakdown. So I think that breakdowns, and I look at the breakdowns, the submissions, not just from agencies, but I also look at the submissions that come in directly from actors. I think that's a really great tool that actors have in the palms of their hands. So definitely I would be checking your actors' access to submit as much as possible. And I will also say that one thing that I would highly, highly recommend is making sure that your profile on Actors Access is up to date. Definitely have video up there. Anything that you have up there that can help us. We're looking at sometimes over hundreds of like 200, 300. I sometimes get over 500 submissions from actors. So if your profile is as complete as possible, you have a better chance of being seen. Sometimes I try and look at every submission, but I'll skip over a submission if there's no video, if there's no audio, if there's nothing. It's really hard to know what work someone's done. Is that helpful?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I hear you saying is keeping your casting profiles up to date. Certainly, a lot of work with voiceover agents and letting them know what what your skill set is, that you'd be interested in dubbing, whatever. One more follow-up question on that. Do you have a preference? There's so many different kinds of voiceover reels that voiceover performers may have, right? Animation, commercial, whatever. Is there a type of voiceover demo that you find most helpful when looking to find new dubbing performers?
That's a great question. I prefer a reel, so over a voiceover demo. And if somebody does submit a voiceover demo, I would say that I'll say that my least voiceover demo that I least prefer is animation, because I'm casting, the streamers really bring me and Matt and all the directors in to as Matt said, make this as close to a live action film or television production as possible. So if I'm listening to an animation demo, it's far from natural, and I'm looking for natural. Got
it. So like their traditional actor demo reel where you can see them acting and see the performance, because I know, and I'm curious, Courtney, for you, when I've done dubbing projects, it's still, I'm acting. And in some ways it's a unique thing because you don't get to see me, right? Like if I'm acting on camera and you're on me, I can do work with my face or whatever. And I don't have that opportunity. The other actor does. But so Courtney, I'm curious for you, could you tell us a little bit about like the creative process as an actor when you're getting ready for a dubbing role?
Interesting. I can't say that it's anything that I do ahead of time, if you will. Aside from like the care for my voice, body, like mental health and well-being, because in my experience, I really have come into this to the recording booth or the studio, not really knowing what I'm taping that day, not really knowing what I'm going to be doing that day. So just trying to be as prepared as I would be as if I was going to set, right? As clear as I can be, and as ready to play and kind of tap into that creative space. When I am in the booth, I would say that for me, it's really paying attention to the performance that's already been set. I really want to honor that performance and then offer my interpretation of that. So I'm not changing the performance. I'm not doing anything different from what is set, but I'm elaborating on the framework that's already been created and laid out for me.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Oh, my watch.
Speaking of voiceover.
So I'm not changing the performance, right? What I'm doing is I am experiment. So I think that is where the play is, because there is a little bit of, there's some boundaries, right? There's a little bit of a container. And I have to play within that, which is really fun, because then I have to problem solve a little bit. I think I like that part of acting.
Yeah, I find that it requires a certain amount of like mental, intellectual work alongside the creative piece. It's just sort of using both parts of your brain, as it were. Assaf, I'm curious to hear from you, any differences in how you approach your performances for live action dubbing versus other traditional voiceover work, on camera roles? You know, you've performed in so many different mediums, and I'm curious if you have a difference in approach for dubbing.
Thank you. I like what Courtney said about, ultimately it's really about being a good actor, and taking care of your voice is important. The night before, try to get as many hours of sleep as you need, and hydrate, so that, because many times you don't know what you're going to do when you're working on camera. If you're fortunate enough to work on camera, then by the time you show up on set, you should be off book. You already know all your lines. You understand the framework, and now you're there to play. You're there to to work off the other actors, to listen to the director, and to bring your creativity and to intertwine it with the vision of the director. And if it's an established program, then you kind of understand the world. If you're going into a Law and Order type show, if you're going to a multi-camp sitcom, you understand a little bit about timing and so forth. Frequently when you're going into dubbing, I would say almost always, with rare exceptions, you don't know what you're going to say. Frequently, sometimes you don't even know what the show is. They have code names, and so you can Google it, you can try to figure out, and maybe you do, but if it hasn't been released, not even in the original country where it was originally produced, you don't know what you're going into. So you have to listen. You have to watch the performance, of course, and really try to figure out, what is this performer doing? What are they responding to? And really trust your director. And if you're fortunate enough, I know I'm sounding like, because they know, they've watched the material, they understand, they've had the conversations, so you gotta really, really trust them. There are a lot of times I'll do a take and I'm like, that was it, because my little actor ego goes, oh, that was great. And then they'll go, that's really, really good. But what if we try one where it's not that, it's this? And I go, okay, maybe don't necessarily, of course, I'll play a game and then I'll watch it. And then later on, as I watch more of the content, I'll be like, oh, okay, right. That's why that happened. Okay, the director clearly knew what was going on. So you really have to be a little comfortable being uncomfortable, not knowing a lot. And that's exciting. And you have to be a little bit more humble, because when you're originating the role, it's you and the director, right? And the other actors that you're working off here. But here it's all that. And like Courtney said wisely, you have to honor the performance that the original actor or actress did before you. You can't be too far off from it. So it's like you said, it's like there's juggling multiple balls at once, and it's great to keep things active. I love it. I think it's very enjoyable.
Nell, I'm curious your thoughts on any particular skills or experience that might be especially helpful to have as a dubbing artist.
I mean, gosh, I think, like both Courtney and Assaf are amazing in the booth, and Ben, you are as well. We have to kind of set it up for you guys, right? We have to know how to help you in the booth, kind of give you this overview of who your character is. And then also the processes that Matt was talking about, right? So the translation comes in, and then within each of these platforms, they hire adapters. And that's a huge part of it, because it's about sort of colloquializing whatever the translation is to fit in the mouths. So what I love when I get actors in the room is to let them run right? I want them to do the full scene. And I want to hope that the adaptation is there so that we can do that, so that there's an emotional through line, because at the end of the day, you guys are actors. And if I'm sitting there and I'm only focused on the lip flaps, then we're going to give a product where people are going, oh, okay, but it's not emotionally connected. So I think that, you know, having actors who are good at being uncomfortable, who are trusting, who are ready to play, who are healthy and happy and like clear head, you know, that's what you're looking for. And that goes for on camera as well as in the booth. But particularly for this, because it's like absorbing these performances and then trusting that this performance is going to come into you intellectually, hook into your body, and then you're going to be able to put it out in the, you know, time frame that you have. And I always tell my actors it's emotional karaoke. So you get in there and, you know, you really do. You've got this red line and the words go through, and you know, it's really about being open and about listening and watching and taking things in, not just the words, but also the phrasing and the body movement, all of that.
Now, I love the emotional karaoke reference. To me, it's like if a random person asks, what is dubbing? I'm like, well, it's kind of like karaoke, where you see the words light up at a particular time,
yeah,
but then your job is to have a particular emotion in each of that and to have that be, you know, cogent overall.
Yeah.
For anybody who's newer to this world, you mentioned lip flaps. Can you just explain what that is and that dynamic between the lip flaps and the performance?
Right. Well, you know, another thing I always say is there's what it sounds like, and then there's what it looks like it sounds like. And, you know, I think we love these videos where you can take whatever personality you want and kind of put something else in their mouths. Well, that's effectively what we're doing. You know, we are putting sort of an English American colloquial, those words, sorry, that sentence was bizarre, but we're putting these words in mouths. So a lip flap is really just the flapping of your mouth and how often you do it. So, you know, American or English is much more similar because we're clipped to something like German, as opposed to, you know, my first dub, which was called Hockey Girls, which was Castilian, which might be one of the most difficult languages to put English words in those mouths. So the lip flap is just that. It's just how your lips move when you're speaking. Yeah.
Super helpful. Dorit, can you talk a little bit about the casting process for dubbing? You mentioned where you find actors. How is the casting process for dubbing similar to other off-camera voiceover roles? You know, how is it similar? How is it different?
Sure. As Matt said, we've been building this, like, it's been like a play-by-play. So it used to be, when we first started, we used to actually have in-studio auditions, just like you would for, you know, again, live action film or TV series. Now what we do is actually COVID has shifted things a little bit and things have gotten busy. So we're doing it remote now, which is working very well. What we do is we get the material, we'll look at the scenes, work with the director, hear from the director what the director wants. We'll pull scenes, or the director will pull scenes. My office will put sides together. We'll send the sides out to the actors. And then the actors will record the sides on, you know, into their phone or their home studio. One thing I'll say is don't worry when you're putting an audition together for me, for dubbing. I wouldn't worry about the sound quality. I would really just worry more about being natural and your natural performance. So the actor will put their audition together. They'll email me the MP3 and we will review the MP3. The director will review the MP3. And then we sometimes do callback auditions. And what we do as well with callbacks is we will marry that MP3 to video. And so we try to see if because there's so many, it's not just if the actor sounds natural, it's also, does that voice sound like it's coming out of that body on screen? So another thing I want to let actors know is that they should not take any of it personally. A lot of times there's that extra technical element of like, does that match? Is it a voice match? So number one, is it natural? Number two, is it a voice match? Yeah, that's the process.
I dig it. Matt, I'm curious. Okay, so Dorit working with everyone, gets the actor cast, they show up in the booth. Now what? What should the actor expect? Can you explain about a little bit more about how that process works once the actor shows up into the booth?
Yeah, sure. So, well, what's amazing about working on these shows, I'm sure Nell's had the same experience, with Dorit and anyone else's casting. But when I work with Dorit, we work really tight, and we cast and we figure it out as if we were making the TV show ourselves in English. So the cool thing about that, which I think is the only way to really work and have great work in this dubbing thing, is when you go into the studio, you know what you're expecting. You know who this person is. They did a killer performance, so you're ready. Ideally, they've seen the material, but like Courtney and Assaf have said, you might not have the material, but that's okay because we watched it. We know exactly what it is. Usually what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll do it just like if we were shooting a scene. I'll be like, hey, this is who you are. This is where you're at in the story. This is where you are emotionally. Let's go from there. Because like Nell was saying, that's sort of the core of all this, right? Is a performance. We want you to go in there and do your talent. And there's technical stuff you're going to do. Like you're going to have to sit in front of the microphone. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to watch the scene you're about to do. We'll talk about it. And then again, like Nell was saying, you just go, you just play, you try it. We already think you're going to be great. I talk about it like the technical and the creative stuff in dubbing in this way. So yeah, you're going to have to match lip flap, which is like making sure it looks like your words are coming out of that person's mouth. But that's not anything anybody should be concerned about when you first come in. I explain it like this. Like if you're a great actor, you're a great actor. If you've never been on set before, that's okay, because maybe you're great and you've been in theater, you've been in other things. There's technical aspects you're going to have to learn. But I'm not going to go up to you and go like, okay, Assaf, in this scene, you're going to go from here and do this. Oh, and make sure you're in focus the whole time. That's ridiculous, because you're going to be thinking about that. And like, that's something so obvious we're going to figure out. So I would say, when you come in, it's just be prepared to act and give your gift. And we want to create that environment of like safety, to do that.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that when I first started, I realized that was kind of surprising to me, though it shouldn't have been, was, oh, we've got the director in the session who's doing, like Matt, what you're talking about, right? The performance, the emotion, helping fill in some of the gaps in the backstory. But then there's also, an audio engineer there who can move things around, right? Oh, I missed my karaoke cue on exactly that word, and then they can go in and fix it for me. Harder for them to fix a bad performance, but some of that technical stuff, right? They can move things around or line it up and deal with the lip flap. So yeah, I don't know, Nell, Matt, anyone else, if you have any other thoughts on that process or any of those other misconceptions. Nell.
Well, I just was going to jump onto Matt's, what he was saying, because I think he and I are similar in the way that we direct these. And to me, it's performance. It's always performance. And we can go back if there's a place that's kind of sticky that you're not getting for lip sync, and we can adjust within that. But if we don't have like an emotional through line of a scene, then, sorry, audience, we would never do that. So, but I will say, here's just something that you learn from doing it. If you start late, finish late. Don't try to catch up to yourself in the line, because if you have watched, and this is again, and this I think for actors across the board, learning to watch and listen for details when you're on set with your other actors. I mean, there are, if you can develop a muscle to live in a scene, period, yay, then, you know, you're winning a battle, right? So the same goes for being in the room. If you know and you have ingested what the scene is about and you start late, but you are so on it and you can finish late but give a great performance, that's what the engineer is there for with us, to just go, okay, great, wonderful, moving on. And then you're done and you did it. So yeah, I think trusting yourself, trusting what you see emotionally and what you put out, you know, making choices and living, breathing with them, you know, don't hold your breath, like be in that with them, because all of that adds to the performance. You know, the microphone's picking all of it up. So
Yeah, beautiful. Dorit, I'm curious, before we head to final thoughts from everyone, we mentioned this in the introduction, but can you give us a sense of the volume of live action dubbing roles for what you're casting? Like, are you casting 1 or 2 roles a week? Are we, you know, what is the volume of opportunities for actors here?
Just my office personally is casting between 6 and 10 projects a month. So I don't know if that gives you an idea. And I would say that I'm working on a series now that has, so we have our leads. Our leads are anywhere from 4 to 8 characters, and then larger, you know, not main leads, but like larger roles. And then we have our secondary roles that are have somewhat significant, like maybe some of them may have 80 loops or 40 loops. Then we have our incidentals, where you're coming in and doing a line here and a line there. And I want to encourage actors, because I really try to bring in new actors who've never done this before, and especially plug them in those incidental roles. And then there are experienced actors who we plug in too, because we know they're going to come in and bang them out. So again, don't take things personally, and really let yourself come in and play like everyone's saying. Because it is, I wanted to mention, there are a few actors who I'm thinking of right now who came in and really struggled with the technical aspects and building that muscle, and have now become some of our quickest dubbers who bring the performance and are able to do it technically. So I want to encourage actors to submit, tell their agents they're interested in dubbing.
Yeah. And you said your office alone, and you're obviously not the only office casting these projects. You said what, like 6 to 10 a month. And do you have like a sense of how many total actors you might, you know, cast per project?
Yeah.
Because it's everybody that would be in that film or TV show, right? Effectively. I mean, the incidentals, it's not, some people may do multiple characters if they're like small.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up my thing and I'll tell you right now.
Oh, great. I love this.
For example, here's a feature that I just did that had 54 roles and we cast 17 actors. Here's another 6-episode series that has 88 roles and we cast 28 actors. Another one, 239 roles, we cast 41 actors. It kind of jumps around, but does that give you an idea?
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is several hundred possibly roles in any given month. One, you know, certainly lots and lots of opportunities for actors. So I encourage our members, you know, this is an area of work to pay attention to. And like Dorit said, and Assaf alluded to, you know, hanging your putting on your humility hat, you know, coming in to just do a couple lines, and, you know, Nell or Matt get to work with you and go, that actor was great. They nailed that performance. They're a great actor. Now, all of a sudden you know, they know about you and can bring you back for other things and, you know, continue to bring you in over time. And obviously same with casting directors, which we know to be true in the on-camera world, right? When casting directors fall in love with an actor, they're constantly looking out for ways to cast you. Super helpful information. As we're wrapping up here, I would love any final thoughts from each of you. I can start with Assaf if nobody volunteers. So I want to hear any final thoughts, advice for SAG-AFTRA members out there who are interested in this wide world of dubbing.
I think if it's something that you're open to and you're interested in, I would say go for it. Maybe start watching some international titles, content that you may not have been watching already. This has been something exciting for me. I've been exposed to films and TV shows from other countries that I would never have chosen on Disney or Netflix or whatnot, whatever platform. But now that I'm working on, like, these are amazing shows. You know, a little humility also, just as Americans, you know, there are other countries that are doing amazing work, you know, Squid Games, of course. So just to watch for that, you know, and different styles of acting, and kind of to see like rhythm and pace and things like that. And if you're into it, you know, like was said, tell your reps if you're fortunate enough to be working with the voiceover agent, or tell your manager. But something that Courtney said earlier really resonated with me, that this is the kind of work that if you do on camera work, it really tends to work for the most part. You can fit it in around your life if you have other things going on, because within every project is going to have a different timeline and how urgent they are close to their deadlines, but they'll work around your schedule to a certain point if they want to work with you, you know, if they can. If they can't, they can't. But that's really nice. You know, what at times after you sign your NDA, you'll always sign an NDA. They'll ask about your availability. What is your availability to work during this period that has been allotted to record, you know, all the loops for this project, and be honest about your thing. And obviously things are going to come up. If you're fortunate, you book something and you got to fly out of town to do it, that may rule you out. It may not. I was fortunate enough to work on a project where they were so awesome. I was out of town filming something and they found a local studio. I don't think that's typical. I wouldn't recommend doing that, but that was just a very fortunate incident. So it's something that you can interweave with the other kind of work that you're doing. So if you're into it, go for it.
Absolutely. Courtney, final thoughts, advice for our members.
Yes, actually, I just really wanted to reiterate using community. You know, there are some SAG-AFTRA members that maybe don't have representation right now, or feel comfortable letting their representation know this is something they want to do. I got into this work because of friendships and because of relationships. And I think it's just so important to reach out to your fellow actors or people that you know they're in business that you feel comfortable with, and saying, hey, this is something I'm interested in. Perhaps you can point me in the right direction or give me some resources that might be helpful in me getting my feet wet and getting some grounding here. That would be the suggestion or the advice that I would offer, is just, you know, I am a person who does believe thoughts become things, and, you know, if you want something, speak it out loud. And so if this is something that is interesting to you, don't be afraid to reach out to those around you in your community, in your acting community, and say, hey, this is something that I'd like to know more about and I'd like to explore, and where, you know, point me in the right direction. That would be like the final thought, I guess, I have.
I love that. I wish I have a thoughts become things coffee mug I use on many days. I don't have it with me right now. Matt, final thoughts.
I think that in the beginning of this presentation, Gabrielle said something so perfect and beautiful that I think sums up a lot of this. And it's the fact that this industry is hard, right? And it's hard to make a living sometimes and to figure out how you're going to do that. And when things like this come up that people don't know about, I think it's important to spread the word as much as possible to different actors in the community. So on that level, what I think is cool, and I think majority of the directors that are working on the bigger streaming projects like Nell, me, a bunch of friends of ours. We come from film and theater and all kinds of stuff. And so I think we're more like Assaf and Courtney than we are, like old school voiceover people, right? So we're the same as you guys in the sense that we found this new thing, and the brilliant minds at Netflix, gave us the tools to be able to come in and be creative. And I think it's an opportunity to practice your craft, just like it is for us directors. And it's a way to constantly be earning a living, which is brilliant.
I love that. I love that. Dorit, final thoughts.
Yeah, definitely update all of your profiles. Make sure that if I'm looking for you or someone recommends you, that I can find your stuff online somewhere. And then also I wanted to say, I find that like Ben and Assaf and Courtney, I haven't worked with you yet, but I can't wait to. I think that actors who are working a lot are usually, I've noticed, personalities who say yes to life and yes to things, and don't have, you talked about humility, and don't have that ego of like, I'm not doing a few lines, I'm not doing a co-star, I really, as Matt said, at least in this part of the industry, we're not very old school in that sense. And we're very, like, my biggest piece of advice would be say yes to any opportunity.
Beautiful. Nell, take us home. Final thoughts.
So probably one of my favorite teachers ever, and a mentor to me, said, luck is when opportunity and preparation meet. And certainly that's how I fell into this job. My agents called and said, hey, there's this dubbing happening. Would you like to meet with them? And then, that was 3.5 years ago, and it was like off to the races. And it's kind of everything that all of you said, all of it. It's about community. It's about saying yes. It's about the way that our thoughts become things and experiences. And it's about keeping things up to date and just being ready, just always being ready and creating space for new and different things to find you. Because I think what is interesting with all of us on here is that we didn't know this was going to be a thing. We had no idea that this was going to be a part of our careers. And here we are. And, we kind of got in at the ground floor, and it's exciting. And when you are humble and when you don't close off your perception to, I'm only successful if I succeed in this way, then the possibilities are endless. And, who knows what's next? What's going to be created in 3 years or 8 years or 10 years? So I just think it's very exciting work, and I love every single face on this screen. So I'm so glad to be with you all today, and thank you.
Hear, hear. What a beautiful note to end on. Yeah, I look forward to Dorit starting up casting for live action hologram performances, coming down the pike in the near future. Nell, Dorit, Matt, Assaf, Courtney, thank you so much for being here today to discuss live action dubbing and how our members can take advantage of this really amazing and promising area of work. I really, really appreciate it. Also, a shout out to Gabrielle Carteris and the Conservatory Community Committee for bringing this through the PTEOE today. A reminder that our guests will not be able to answer questions after today, but if you have questions, you can send them to pteoe@sagaftra.org. I would also say, for anybody who's watching this, if you missed the dubbing contract basics PTEOE that we did, go take a look on the SAG-AFTRA YouTube channel and watch that, which will give you a brief but comprehensive rundown of the way that the dubbing contract works for SAG-AFTRA dubbing jobs. And before we go, I do want to remind members to check out the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's virtual voiceover lab. If you haven't already, make sure to register and then go to sagaftra.foundation and check out all of the great classes and workshops they offer to take advantage of the Foundation's online voiceover lab help desk, an amazing resource for our members. Final reminder to everyone watching, this presentation is available as a replay on our YouTube channel, so you can watch it anytime and send the link, like we talked about, to some friends, other performers who might be interested. On behalf of the whole team here at SAG-AFTRA, thank you so much for watching. A special shout out to our regular viewers who've been tuning in each week for our PTEOE President's Task Force on Education, Outreach, and Engagement live streams. If you have ideas for topics you would like us to cover in the future, please email us, pteoe@sagaftra.org. And before we go, if you haven't already, please subscribe to SAG-AFTRA's YouTube channel to get updates on all of the content we are posting. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.